Well, hello again. I am finally ready to paint the old chassis. I got the transformer cleaned up real good. Boy, that took a while. Let me tell you. Anyway, these holes here, I found it, it's easier to just stuff paper towels down in here to, to plug up the holes. Sometimes you can do that with a smaller chassis. It's almost impossible with a big chassis because there's so much space underneath, and as soon as you stick the paper towels, I just rip off pieces, and then stuff them down in with a pair of tweezers like this. But your large ones is very difficult. They just fall right through because there's so much space. Whereas with your tinier chassis, they catch on the wires and the capacitors and all that stuff, and you just keep stuffing them in till they won't, till they won't take anymore. Then you kind of make sure it's away from the edge. So when you do your painting, your edge gets painted also on each of the holes. And sometimes it's not going to be 100% perfect the way you want it, but I'm not perfect. I know that. This light is really putting too much light on this. Put it more of an angle there. But anyway, that's how I did it this time. I just stuffed them through. These don't need it because there's nothing underneath. Same here. And with all these other ones. Apparently these chassis are used for different radios, which is what they did back in the old day. And then, now this stuff here, some of you might be wondering, is that leftover navel jelly? No, it's not. That's glue. They glued these things so they wouldn't move. So it's hard as a rock. They did that on a whole bunch of stuff on this chassis. I thought that was pretty smart. Anyway, what we're going to do, the temperature is up to 60 degrees now. I can take it out and I'm going to hit everything with primer paint. Then we'll let her set. Okay, I've got this chassis propped up on a paint can on each paint can lid on each side, and then I got two of them underneath here holding the transformer up so I have a space under there where I can spray and cover that as well. I've already given it a couple of quick shots. Goodness gracious, she's looking better already. Let me finish it up. Alright, that's not bad for the first coat. I'll probably have to touch up around the transformer again. But you got to understand one thing about why we're painting these chassis. We're not painting them to make them look, pretty and gorgeous and all that stuff, and everybody to ooh and ah over. No, that's not the primary reason for the primary function of paint on these things. It's to preserve them. Okay? So if you get a little tiny flaw somewhere, here, there, wherever, hey, we should not worry about such things. Don't worry. The purpose of doing this is to preserve it for future generations. Nothing else, really. Yeah, the side effect is a good-looking chassis when you're done. That's the way I've always looked at it. It is time to go ahead and paint this thing silver. I'm working on my taxes right now, and I'm so frustrated I can't stand it. So I've decided to just stop and paint the chassis. We're going to use this Rust-Oleum. It's paint and primer combined. I really like that 2-in-1 deal, especially if I've already got a coat of primer on. But look, gold, silver, and copper paint, spraying with that out of a spray can can be very difficult. So make sure you shake the can extra well and take your time when you do your painting. And I don't think it'll ever be anywhere near as shiny as this. It never is. I'm going to go ahead and go over the top of it with clear satin anyway. And I made it a point to cover up the end of it right there with a piece of cardboard. I got a little bit of paint up under there with the gray. I didn't like that. So anyway, let's see how it goes. It's pretty shiny, but not bad really. Let me finish it. Well, there it is. That's just the first coat. I'm impressed. I'm impressed on how shiny that thing is. I may not even wind up putting the satin on. I don't know. Let's wait until it gets finished after the second coat. So far, we've got 2 coats on. I'm fixing to put the last one. I'm going to put 3 coats. Then I'm going to let it set until tomorrow. There's no blemishes. But of course, now when I'm ready to finish it up with this coat, all kinds of stuff will begin to happen probably. Stay away from it. Stay away. You got to think like a chassis, okay? Just think like a chassis. All right. I'll show you how I do the third one all the way from start to finish. You gotta stay away. Shake your can a lot, especially the metal. It's easy to paint, you know, down onto a flat surface. It won't run. It's on the edges that you really have your problem. Just don't overdo it. There's no need to overdo it. Considering what we had when we started, we're 1,000,000% ahead already if I just stop right now. So don't try to go for ultra perfection. You've already done it if you're going this far. I think that's about going to do it. Let me see if I need a little bit more over here. Maybe just a touch. Okay, I think that's going to do it. Now we just let it sit. It is the next day, and it's time for the clear coat. So let's, you know, sometimes these clear coats will have a detrimental effect on your paint. I don't know why. It only happens with Rust-Oleum. It's kind of a crapshoot. One can works fine, the next one doesn't. And you know, I've tried everything. I've been pretty lucky so far, but it's not always the case. And when you get one good coat on, and you say, "Ooh, it looks really good," and I always like to put 2 coats, but you know, sometimes you have to beat yourself up to convince yourself to go with the second coat because you know it's liable to screw it up after you had a nice clear coat put on. So, what the heck? Let's just go for it. I'm trying to dull it down. It's too shiny. Looks like the Tin Man of the Wizard of Oz. It's so shiny. See, starting to tone it down a little bit already. The first coat of clear coat turned out fine. No problems at all. No blemishes, no runs, no hits, no errors. So let's go ahead and shoot at the second one. Then we're going to let it set for 24 hours, after which I'll tape this area off as much as I can and paint the transformer black. Well, that's it. She's all done. I'm not going to paint anymore. I've got 2 coats of black on there. 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of silver. I think there are 2 coats, maybe one more somewhere along the line, and then a couple of coats of clear satin. And I'm not going to let it sit for 24 hours, but it's going to have to sit for a few hours, maybe 6, maybe 8. Who knows? Maybe I won't get to it till tomorrow. You know, you start bolting this stuff down too early, you know, putting the nuts on the legs, and the paint will stick to the silver, and it's just not a cool thing. So it has to be not only dry, it's got to be hard. So it could take maybe till tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. I was going to take 2 more videos to finish this up, the chassis and then the cabinet, but I think I better just get everything back on the top of the chassis and then go ahead and wrap this video up and then do the capacitor changes and you know, resistor measurements in the next video, and then do the cabinet. I've got another project I want to get out of the shop and get on the table here on the bench, but I got to get this one wrapped up. But she's looking pretty good so far, so let's go ahead and get all this paper and crap off and try to get as much as we can. I want to get the tuner on and all that other crap. Alright, all that junk is off. That took longer to take off than it did to put on. Okay, it looks real good, except I've got a little, this will happen to you. Some of the navel jelly got up underneath that paper right there, so I'm going to have to clean that. And I'm also, you know, I'm going to pull these out eventually and put the nuts back on and shine up these rods a little bit too, make them look good. And I'm going to try to do a little bit more cleaning on these cans, but I'm not going to do a lot. And of course, I hope I didn't pull too hard on any wires when I was taking off all that tape and everything. But I will tell you one thing. I told you in the beginning, from moving this transformer around and doing everything, trying to get it cleaned and all that, get the rust off and get it painted, you always have to go underneath there and check to make sure that nothing broke off. Well, it did in fact. One of the wires did broke off. One of the little short ones. It just didn't have a lot of flexibility and it just popped right off. So we'll go down underneath. I'll show you that in the next segment. But right now, I'm going to take some alcohol. I'm going to just clean that crap off. A little focus here. Just going to clean that crap off right there. Get that old navel jelly, that dried navel jelly off of there. And the alcohol won't take the paint off. That's why I use alcohol. Cleans it up pretty good. There may be a little bit of stain, you know, white stain, where some of the finish was removed from the can, but hey, we do not worry about such things. Well, our transformer's on now, nice and secure. I got to do that wire still underneath, but This shaft is good to go. Got the nut tightened on this one, but this here had a very rusty. These internal star washers are still actually in pretty good shape. Just a little bit of rust on them. They got good gripping surface when we tighten it down. I'm going to have to soak this one. I got to get that rust off of there. You don't want to leave those rust. You either buy new ones or take the rust off the old ones. And I'm going to show you a way to do it. You just pour some of your navel jelly in the cap, stick it down in there, and let it sit. Then go have a couple cups of coffee or something. When you come back, believe me, it'll all be clean. While that thing is soaking in the navel jelly, let's see if we can't get this tuner back on. It's going to go on just like that. And but we're not just going to set it on there. We have to put it in some rubber grommets. Lucky me, when I went to the Hamvention, some of you have maybe never heard of a Hamvention, but every year they have a giant ham radio convention up in Dayton, Ohio. It's called the Hamvention. One of our good subscribers, Scott Johnston, I met him up there, and that's how we got together. And I bought a whole bunch of rubber grommets and things. Out in the town of Dayton, there was this huge place where they sold all kinds of crap, just stuff that went back probably to the caveman days. There was so much stuff in there, and they sold it cheap, and they sold it bulk in bins. You just grab what you wanted, and then they'd charge you so much. It was an amazing place. And I went to Dayton twice, and we went there twice, and I picked up a whole bunch of these. I've used just about all of them up. I picked out large ones, small ones, medium-sized, little ones, and I've still got a few of them left. So I think these might work. Let me see if I can get them in there. I'm just going to put in one in this hole, one in this hole, one in this hole. Well, that should work. Let's see what we got here. Look at that, perfect. Before we go ahead and place this thing on there permanently, I want to make sure I know which wires go where. So we go back to our schematic where I wrote them when I took them off. Now I've got front, middle, and ground, which is this thing right here. This is where this woven strap is. So what we've got front, middle, and ground, which is this one right here. Okay, this one goes down through, and another wire comes up from the bottom and solders there. So this is a ground, and this is a ground. This is not a ground. And then we have one more, which is on the top of the chassis. I don't know if you remember it from the first or third video. I can't remember, but it goes right here. Okay, and that wire there is this one right here. Now I can go ahead and solder that one on, then go ahead and place the entire tuner down through, and then I'll hook up some wires here, here, and here before I place the tuner on, which will be these babies right there. Before I go ahead and solder these things, I got the ends stripped off, and I got one soldered up already. It's funny how it has to come around like this and go with that little curly Q around there like that, but that's the way it is. It's the way it was when I took it off. The next question is, can we use solid wire or stranded wire? Which should we use? Well, it's very simple. If the wire moves around, like this one right here, you're going to be taking it on and off of a tube, just like this one. And this light, you'll be taking it loose when the light bulb blows out and all that. Stranded wire. Okay, this one over here, same thing. Anything that's going to move. Stranded wire for all of that. Now, if it goes down underneath the chassis and it gets soldered in place, it never moves, it sits there solid for until eternity, then you can go ahead and use a solid wire. If it moves, stranded. If it does not move at all, ever, in its entire existence, then you go ahead and use solid. Got it? Got it. One more thing, whenever you're soldering to this type of tab, okay, you don't need to run your wire through and wrap it around and around and around. That's dumb. I don't know why they did that at the factory. All these old radios, boy, they thought they had to wrap those wires around 20 times. I don't know what the thought pattern was behind that. But you go ahead and just run it through the hole, bring it up on the other side, take a pair of pliers, just kind of crimp it enough till it's together where it kind of holds the wire. You see it kind of holds itself, and then I'll go ahead and solder it. After you've soldered your joint, take some alcohol and clean that flux off of there. Get that flux off there, make it look clean. Makes you look like you know what you're doing. Because you did it, you do know what you're doing. And keep your soldering iron tip clean when you're soldering, okay? Keep it nice and shiny and clean on the end. I always like to clean my tip between each thing that I solder. The reason I'm telling you about some of this stuff about soldering is I've had several people, quite a few, have asked me to do a video on soldering. How do I solder? Well, it's all basic common sense, and you can have your rag. Normally I use two hands, you know. You can have a wet rag or a sponge to wipe it off on. I found out that if you just will keep it clean in between soldering, some guys will solder like 10 items without cleaning the tip. Don't ever do that. No, you've got all that cooked up flux on there and you're applying it to the joint. You can see that dirty crap. That's what will wind up in your solder joint if you don't keep it clean. Well, I've got some good news to report. I can remove the red wire and the blue wire. These were the wires I put on. They were for insurance purposes only. You know, if the wires I clipped off earlier in the series didn't reach the place where they had to go when I got ready to solder them back, these wires were there to help out. But I don't need them anymore because the blue and the red will reach. I'll have to put a wire right here on this braid because it won't reach over to this right here where it came from. But the black wire does not reach, so I'll have to join up this black wire with this one here, and I'll clip this off, do a splice, and put some heat shrink on it and all that. And after I clip this off, I'll use that wire to go on to the braid right here, and then run it over to there. And then of course this orange one here bends all the way down and also goes onto that right there. So this is getting much longer than I ever anticipated. I'm sorry guys, I was kind of hoping to be able to recap it and everything, but I didn't want to shortchange you on wiring and doing some soldering and things like that. So as usual, I got long-winded. Sorry about that. Now if there's anything is confusing and you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know I'm not the clearest glass of water out of the faucet. So until next time, now we're going to have 2 more videos. The next one will be recapping it for sure, and then the last one, the cabinet. We'll take care of the cabinet. So until next time, this is John.